Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Mama Haudipela, and yeah, I promised you guys a video on how we paid off our debt, and in today's video I'm going to share with you I think a few tips on what you can do if you want to get out of debt, especially if it's a lot of debt, what helped us, and some of the important takeaways, some of the lessons that I learned from that whole journey paying off debt. Now, I will start by saying we did this a while back. I mean, 2014, 15. I think it was about the time when we paid off all of that debt. And I mean, we had everything from cars, from student loans, from credit card, from personal loans. And you mentioned it, we had it, but I think we kind of underestimated how much debt we were in, because if you don't put it down and you list all of it, it's easy to minimize the amount of debt that one has until you get to the end of the month and you start to feel like you're drowning when you look at, you know, the kind of salary that you have and, you know, the fact that you can't get to the end of the month. It starts to get a little bit frustrating. I think that is what frustrated me the most. Is I felt like at that time we were making a lot of money. Yes, granted, it's 2014 then, but I thought for the kind of money that we were having, it didn't make sense that we always felt like we didn't have enough. And I will tell you that what got us on this whole thing was, for some reason, one day I was on YouTube and I bumped into Dave Ramsey's channel. If I tell you that I was obsessed with that channel, that was the only thing I watched on YouTube throughout the time when we were paying off our debt. And it helped a lot, especially with the motivation. And, you know, when you hear people talking about their debt-free journey and screaming, I am debt-free, you know, it was kind of like something that we looked forward to. And it made me look at all the debt that we have in a different light. But to be honest, I really didn't think that we had that much debt, because especially when you're a married couple, in as much as we do things together, some of us, you know, when you get into a relationship, sometimes we have baggages like student loans, and sometimes this one has a credit card or this one has a clothing account that we don't really talk about and disclose. And later on, you start to discover, you know, that we're actually not on the same page in as much as we think we are. And I think one of the first lessons that I learned about debt is how much shame we all have around it. And it's not easy for all of us to admit that we've actually made bad choices and now we are struggling. And I think the fact that we become so ashamed with debt is why it continues to thrive in so many of us. We don't want to talk about it, and we don't want to admit and acknowledge the fact that yes, we've made bad choices and now we have to fix all of them. So yeah, one of the first steps that we needed to do was to take account of everything that we were spending our money on. Looking at your credit card statement, looking at your bank statement, and seeing where all your money is going at the end of the month will give you kind of a big picture of where you are wasting money, where you are spending money, and where you need to start saving money. And when we went through all of our bank statement, we realized that there was a lot of unnecessary expenditure. If some of you will remember, back then in the 2014 and 2015, it was around the height of the 99 Rand scam. I think when we went through my husband's statement, we found that he had about 10 of those transactions every month going out of his account, and he wasn't even aware of it. If you don't check your bank statement, some of the things that go on in your bank account you don't notice, because you don't get transaction notifications for everything. And yeah, when we started paying off, we used the debt snowball method. That is basically where you pay your smallest debt first. And I think a lot of people get caught up with the whole idea of, do I do a debt snowball where you start with the smallest debt up until you get to the highest debt, or do you do the debt avalanche method where you use the paying off the account with the highest interest first, where basically you're trying to save as much money as possible, which for me, I think paying off debt is more than a numbers game. It's a mental game. You know, when you start writing off all the debt that you're paying off, it gives you more of an excitement and more of a motivation to continue going on, which is why I think I was more comfortable doing the debt snowball than doing the debt avalanche. And I think it really doesn't matter which method you pick. It just it depends on what you are comfortable with as an individual, if you're doing it alone and if you're doing it as a couple, what can you both agree on. But at the end of the day, you need to get on that plan and start paying off that debt. And once we identified all the loopholes where the money was leaking and where we were spending all of the money, we basically started to tighten up our budget where we started to see how much we have in our budget after we've paid off all of our minimum payments on all of our accounts. Where can we get the extra money from? Once we started to identify all of the loopholes, where we were spending the most amount of money, where we were leaking money, where you have accounts that are debiting your bank and you're not even aware of, or any other thing that we were spending money that was unnecessary. Things like eating out, unnecessary shopping. I used to buy a lot of clothes. I used to buy a lot of shoes. I used to have my nails done every month, and I was going to Sobe back then. Even back then, Sobe was still expensive, but going to Aldo every second week was kind of like the norm. But at some point, we needed to identify that this is where we are doing all the unnecessary expenditure, and it had to stop. Now, the one thing that I think made the most impact in our debt-free journey, we sold both our cars. My husband had his car, which was 1 year away from being paid off. My car was brand new, less than a year old, and I got rid of that. And between getting rid of the two cars, we got rid of, I think, over 300,000, more than 300,000 combined. And we were lucky because when my husband sold his car, he didn't have any outstanding payments that he had to make. He actually made a little bit extra money from it. But the reason we got rid of it is because it was out of maintenance plan and it started to break down, and we realized that at some point we're going to need to replace this car, and why not just do it at that point. So we got rid of that car, and we also got rid of my car, which I sold to a family member, luckily, and I didn't have to worry about the difference in paying off that car. So I sold it to him, and once we did that, we went and we got a smaller car that we used. And let me tell you, the difference between getting rid of both cars and having one car in the family, we saved over 10,000 rand a month. And if you take it back to 2014, going from spending around 14,000 in payments just for a car installment, combine the two cars, the installment was like 13,000, which was a lot back then, and to paying 2,600. I think when you got the Polo, you were paying like 2,600 on that car, and it was a huge saving. And I mean, the 13,000 that we were paying was not including the petrol, was not including the insurance. So we were actually spending a lot more on cars. But just that difference where you can go, basically my car that I had would pay for the car that we got, the Polo that we got, and it would pay also for the petrol and insurance. And my husband started using the Gautrain. And when you look at just that money that we saved from the cars and whatever that we had extra from our budget, combined with the money that we saved from the car to pay off the debt, you can really see that every month we were able to pay around 20,000 towards our debt, and within a year we had paid off over 200,000 of all of that debt. And even the car that we bought, the new Polo that we bought, we actually managed to pay that one off. And when we got to that point where we had a paid off car, we had absolutely no other debt except for our flat that we had then. I can tell you, when you hear people saying, I paid off my house in 2 years, I paid off my apartment in 3 years, that is how they do it, because all of that money that now you were saving towards, that you were spending towards all of that debt, now just goes into paying off your property, and you pay your property off so quickly that you won't even believe the kind of speed that you managed to pay your debt off. So one thing that really helped us is we were able to both commit to the journey. You need to be able to both commit to the journey in order for this to be successful. And it is difficult when you have two different personality in a relationship, and one is a spender, one is a saver. But in as much as I think we were different in personality, we were also kind of the same when it comes to our motivation in getting out of debt. And once we managed to identify the areas where we needed help, and we were able to communicate that with each other and sort of come to a common ground, it was literally so easy. We just hit the ground running. And one other thing that I can tell you is not everybody is going to be happy with you guys getting on a debt-free journey. There will be people that will be negative when your life starts to change. You're no longer going out every weekend, or you're no longer having braais every Saturday in your house, because now you're watching the budget. Every get together that you have is now planned. You're no longer spending expensive amount. You're no longer spending a lot of money on alcohol and those type of things. You start to really be considerate on everything that you spend money on. Your life will start to change. You will lose some people in your life, but in the same breath, you will start to gain people who have the same mindset, and you will start to understand who wants you in their life for the right reason. Because some people, once they start to realize that you're no longer spending the kind of money that you were spending on them, they slowly start to move out of your life, because now they no longer have, that one guy or that one girl that will spend money when we go out for dinners and lunches. I'm the one that's swiping my card, and the rest of you will decide whether you pay me or not. When that starts to move away, then you start to see who people really are. And it's very difficult to lose people in that way, but I think it's necessary, especially for a lot of us. I think we are comfortable having a lot of people around us, but the quality of the people that we have is really questionable. And if you take away the money aspect of things when it comes to most relationships, you will realize that you really don't have that many friends, because a lot of people stick around based on the benefits that they're going to get from you, and not necessarily from you being a person or what they think they can bring into your life. No, it's about mainly what they can take away from you. And another lesson that I learned when it comes to debt is, once you are debt-free, don't go around telling people that you are debt-free, because people will start to expect you to have money available for them. And everybody seems to feel comfortable to come to complain about their financial situation with you, sort of in a way hinting that maybe you should start helping them with money. And in as much as I don't mind helping people when I don't want to feel like every conversation that we have is you complaining about money. Instead of you helping yourself, you're expecting that the little bit of money that now I have, because now I no longer have a car payment, I no longer have, accounts that I need to pay for, besides my small, necessary debit orders that I have. You feel like I have the extra cash to start to throw around. And that's the thing, when you get out of debt, your mindset with money starts to change. You no longer just feel comfortable just spending on each and every single thing that you have. I remember at some point, once we paid off the debt, my husband wanted to buy me a car, and we had such an argument about it. And a part of me was like, now that I'm so used to driving a smaller, less expensive car, and less a car that doesn't really need that much maintenance, I don't think I'm excited to get a car that now becomes a financial liability on my part and all of those things. But I had to understand it's something that he wanted to do for me, and I had to say yes to it. And what I'm saying is, once you get out of debt, your relationship with money changes, and you start to value each and every single thing that you have, and you start to question each and every single thing that you spend money on. A part of me was like, okay, instead of spending all this money on this brand new car, why don't we maybe just save the money and do something else? But everything happens at the right time and when it's supposed to. And at some point I got rid of that car because I wanted to renovate my house. So that's how my mindset just kind of changed, and over time I started to appreciate what money can do for you, and you start to have a different perspective of money, and everything just starts to feel like it's possible. You're no longer stuck in that one place. I know it's not a video that is very specific on we paid this, we paid that, but it has been so long that we got out of debt that most of the details that I remember is kind of sketchy. But the one thing that stuck in my head was how big of a difference getting rid of our car is. And maybe if you don't know where to start and you have a lot of debt, if you have a car, maybe it's time to take a look at that car. And sometimes it's not really completely not having a car, is maybe downsizing on your car. If you've got a car where you're paying 6,000-7,000, maybe you need to go and find yourself a car where you're paying like 2,000-3,000. Or if you have an alternative where you've got efficient public transport, consider using public transport for a little bit. Even if it's just for a year, it's just going to be uncomfortable, but at some point you will definitely get used to it, and you will get out of debt, and then you will have a car that you can afford, that is not giving you stress, and you are able to move forward also in your journey. I think if you don't make other changes, they also get you stuck in a cycle where now you feel like you're not moving forward, you're constantly in one place, and you're not making progress in life. So yeah, that is my journey and all that I have learned with this whole thing of paying off debt. And I hope it helps all of you guys to better evaluate your finances, and just to sit back and be honest with yourself and say, am I really being honest with myself when it comes to my money? Am I living within my means? And where can I cut my spending in order for me to get back on track and pay off all the debt that I have, in order to have a better future for myself and for my family? And if you're married, it will definitely bring you guys together if the two of you are able to come together and work on this debt together. And it really doesn't matter whether it's all debt from one person or it's debt that you accumulated together. Just coming together and being able to talk about it and paying it off is going to make you better as a couple, as a family, and also in teaching your kids the value of money. I am Mama Haudipela, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye-bye.